Hello! Welcome to your virtual lesson template tutorial. So today I am going to show you how to create your virtual lesson using this template. Now you may have a way of creating it on your own and that's awesome. If you don't need this, great. But if you do find yourself needing this, if you need some tips on how to include all the required components and create your slides lesson, then this is the spot for you. So we have this first slide. It says start by making a copy of this presentation. I'm going to show you how to do that. So you're going to go to File, you're going to say make a copy, and then you're going to say entire presentation. And then this pop-up's going to come up. And let's say that you are going to make a lesson. You just want this to be whatever you're doing. So you come in here and you say, I need to make a new health lesson for next week, or hopefully 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out. And you say, so I'm just going to call this health lesson. Maybe you're doing this for October, so 10, 15. I don't know, whenever you decide you want this to be done. So I put health lesson 1015. That's what I'm going to call it. And then you want to make sure that you're saving it to the appropriate folder. So for me, obviously this is in this folder, but maybe you come back to your CT, or you just save it in your drive, wherever you save your lessons. And if you select My Drive, it's going to save it into your drive. It's going to make a copy in there. Press OK. And then just like that, you're now working in the one that you made a copy of. So you see Health Lesson 1015. That means that you are now making edits in your version. And the reason that's important is because if you make edits in my version or the school's general version, you're going to come back and you'll notice that your edits are gone because I'm going to come back in here and fix it because you will have edited my copy of it. So you want to make sure that you're saving your own so that all your edits are saved. They're your own. All right, so after you do that, after you've made that copy, just know you can come back to this one. If you like this and this is easy for you, then you can come back to this lesson anytime and just keep making copies. New copies, new copies, new copies for every lesson that you need to create. And you can use this template. All right, so the next slide is going to be your title page. And your title page, you're going to either want a solid background, if that is your personal preference. But what I like to do is I like to pick a picture for this slide that I feel is just like, bam, this is what the lesson's about. You can look at this slide and you can say, oh, we're learning about healthy food. So I like to find an image that fits that. So I'm going to come to backgrounds, and the directions on how to do it are on the side there if you need while you're creating the lesson support. You're going to say choose image. You're going to come to Google image search. And then I just like to search for whatever I'm looking for. So healthy food. Then you have all these awesome pictures. I kind of like this one because it's colorful. It has fruits and vegetables. So I'm going to select that image, press OK. And just like that, it's the background for my title page. It's that easy. It's a great way to make it fun and personalized and honestly really pretty. It makes the slides really pretty to look at. Something else you're going to do on this page is you're going to add your title. And the title of this lesson is Health. All right, so now you have your background image, you have your title. The next thing you're going to put on this slide is your I can statement. I can statements are a student-friendly way of understanding the standard. So if you have a standard that you're focusing on, you want your I can statement to reflect what you want your students to be able to do once they finish the lesson, right? So I like to start by doing my standards first. I want to put my standards in before I do my I can statement. That's just a preference. I mean, if you are awesome and super genius, maybe you don't need to do that, but I need to do that. So I like to put my standards in. I want to make sure that the font is all the same size. That's just me being picky. Okay, so what we usually do is like a focus standard, right? You want to make sure that you have your focus standard standing out in some sort of way. So for me, and pardon me, I'm just editing it. I'm editing it with you here so you can see exactly how long it really takes to do this. You want it to stand out in some sort of way. So I don't want this one to stand out because that's not my focus standard. This is my focus standard. So I might take this and I might bump up the font a little bit and I might make it bold. Maybe not so much. Okay, something to maybe you italicize it. It's really up to you. This is just like, other teachers are going to be teaching your lesson. So you want it to be pretty clear what your focus standard is. However you do that is your personal preference. So our focus standard for this lesson is I can identify healthy and unhealthy food choices for humans. That's a great I can statement. That standard is almost written in student-friendly terms, right? So my I can statement will be I can identify healthy and unhealthy food choices for humans. All right. And then you just want to edit this so that it looks good on the page, right? Like I see this is like a little off center. Like you want to make this cute, right? I mean, you don't have to. You can make it ugly if you want to, but I just want it to look good. So I want to make sure that you can really see my focus standard. It's in bold, it's italicized. I want you to be able to see my I can statement. All right, so everything you need is on this page. You have that title, and then you have your I can statement and your standards. And if you saw me do it, I'm sorry, I didn't say I was doing it. I deleted those bubbles. So as you feel like you've completed the slide, I can say, okay, the slide is done. I'm going to get rid of the bubbles because the bubbles aren't going to be in your actual lesson, right? Those are just to help you edit and transform the slide into your own lesson. And then I'm just going to keep going. I use this bar on the side to toggle through my slides. So here we have a reward system. The reward system is completely up to you. Whatever you think is an appropriate reward system for your kids. Lessons should include some sort of reward system. This can look however you like. Remember to make it general. The reward systems for all students, and it should represent things that have been accomplished in the lesson, not necessarily individual student accomplishments, because you don't know what those are, since we are not live in the classroom. So I like to make it nice and generic. I like to put the first then board on the top so that they can always visualize the reward system. And then I like to have some sort of sequential reward system that's featured on the bottom. For me, this is a smiley face chart. I don't use a star chart, and you'll see why, because I use stars for different things and it gets confusing. So this is a smiley face chart. You have that perfect little circle down there, and you can just put the little smiley faces in as they complete things. For example, here, let me show you. I went to Google and I just found this perfect little smiley face. Let me see him. Boop, there he is. He is just a little picture of a smiley face. And I went to Google, I copied the image, and I just plopped him in there and made him the right size. And there you go. You have a smiley face on your reward system. All right. So there's not a lot to personalize on this slide. So I would just say, if you're cool with our reward system, I delete the bubble. Boop. And I would move on to the next thing. But if you were going to do a reward system, I would do it on this slide. I take this one out and put yours in because you want to introduce that reward system right away before the lesson starts. All right, next we have our steps to critical thinking and problem solving. This is something that is required for all lessons. All lessons must include the steps to critical thinking and problem solving. And I like to put these at the very beginning, right before I introduce my questions for students to consider during the lesson, the thinking questions. And that's what you'll find on the next slide. You are going to find that the next 3 slides, 1, 2, 3, are all exactly the same. And these are the slides where you're going to put your questions for consideration or your thinking questions, right? Things that you want the kids to be thinking about as they are learning all this new information. So you would just put your question here. It says type your question here. Now you can either type your questions here or maybe you already have these questions made, right? Like maybe you have a Smartboard presentation and you already have your pre-post test questions. This would normally be your pre-test questions, right? Just go to that presentation and you can take a snippet of that image, the whole thing, and just put it on the slide. Like don't do the extra work if you don't have to, if you're just going to put the same questions and answers in here, right? Or you could even type the question in here and you could snip your images from the question that you've already created in the other platform. So don't do more work if you don't have to. So, but what something you could do if you're just creating this from scratch, if it's like a whole new lesson, right? You could think of your questions. So, what is an example of healthy food? Okay, so there's maybe one question I'd want to ask. And then you can actually use symbol sticks to find your images. I usually use symbol sticks. So I'm going to come over here to symbol sticks, and I already have them pulled up. If you haven't used symbol sticks, it's awesome. It's a part of ULS. And you just find the images that you want on Boardmaker or on the Boardmaker, and you can use Snippet to select these images. So I'm going to start a new one, and I'm just going to select this banana here. Boop, copy that banana, come back into my presentation, paste the banana, and you can either just leave it like that, or you can kind of make it the size of the square, or I guess it's a rectangle. Yeah, you can fit it. You cannot fit it, whatever you think is important to you. Personal preference, right? And then you just want to get your answer choices in here. So I'm going to go back to ULS. I'm going to do another snippet. I'm going to snip another answer choice. And a lot of you already know how to do this, and I'm just showing you something that you already know how to do. But just in case you don't, or if you've been doing it a different way that's more difficult, maybe you're like, oh, I could have been doing it like this. This is so much easier, you know. But a lot of you already do this whenever you make your question. So I'm not telling you something you don't know, but I'm just showing you the process that I go through when I do it. All right, almost done. So there I have a question and I have my answer choices. Okay, and then if I feel satisfied with this presentation slide, I'm going to go ahead and delete my bubble to let me know that I'm finished with it and move on to the next one. All right, I'm just going to pause you for a moment so that I can finish these two slides and not waste your time, okay? All right, so I have finished my questions. Just remember when you're making these questions, you want them to be standards driven. So for example, I have here a question about healthy food. I have a question about human needs, and in regard to like water. So like remember one of our focus standards or our focus standard might have been identify healthy and unhealthy food choices for humans. But we also have one of our standards, understand the needs of living things. And then also understanding the effects of healthy and unhealthy foods on the body. So I just like to throw in a question there as well to address like one of the other standards that we're covering, because we really are talking about healthy food in this lesson, but we're also talking about human needs. That's a big focus of the lesson. All right, so I have my questions, I've deleted my bubbles, and I'm going to move on to my anticipatory set. All right, so the anticipatory set, or some people like to call it a activating prior knowledge. I think that they're like a little bit different, but you know, some people use activating prior knowledge and some people use an anticipatory set. For me personally, I use an anticipatory set, especially with like our new virtual mindset, because I feel that activating prior knowledge is it really needs student involvement. You need student opinions. We need to be invoking student experiences. And because not everyone shares the same experiences, sometimes it's a little bit easier to use an anticipatory set. But that is personal preference. You are fully permitted to use activating prior knowledge on this slide if you like. But this is where you would put an anticipatory set. If you would like to embed a video as your anticipatory set, here's how you would do so. You're going to come to Insert, Video, and then I actually already searched it here, but you're going to insert video, search, and you're going to look up, for me, I'm going to look up healthy food Cookie Monster. You can also get your video by searching the URL, or you can go to your Google Drive and pull a video from there. It's up to you. I find it easier to just pull them off of YouTube because that's where I would get my videos anyway. And there it just inserts the video for you, and you can change the size of the video to whatever you like. And make it as big as possible without cutting off the anticipatory subtitle. Maybe I move this up a little bit. big as possible. All right, there we go. So we have our video of her anticipatory set, and I am pleased with that. So I'm going to delete my bubbles because I feel the slide is ready. And I'm going to keep going. All right, next you have a chance to ask a question about your anticipatory set. Here's where you would put some answer choices. This is up to you, really. Like, I choose to say, based on the anticipatory set, what do you think we'll learn about today? You can put a different question here. That's up to you. Just like check for understanding about the anticipatory set after you deliver it. So you can use ULS to get your images to go here. Let me grab those real quick. All right, so I put my images in here. I have hats, food, and chips as my options or my choices for answers. And I feel satisfied with this slide, so I'm going to delete the bubble. And I'm going to come in here, and here will be my answer slide. All right, so I put this image in. I want the green outline to be in front, so I'm going to change the order. I'm going to send this to the back. And I'm just going to delete these words here. And there you have it. I'm satisfied with that. So I'm going to delete the bubble. Okay, so maybe you're wondering why it's two separate slides, right? Well, there's lots of ways you can do this. There are more complicated ways to do it. I like to do it by making the other options disappear, and that's like a more advanced way to do it. But the easiest way is just to have the slide be separate, and that way it looks like this when you present. So let me show you. All right, so they'll see this with the options, and then when you click, the other ones disappear. It's the easiest way to do it, right? There are obviously more complicated ways to do it. And if you know how to do that and you prefer that, do it. I do it differently too, but this is just the easiest way to create a template for someone to fill out. All right, so let's keep going. On this slide, you are going to have your repeated storyline and your vocabulary words. So you can pull those vocabulary words from ULS, like I showed you before, or if you're using a program like Attainment that provides vocabulary, you can use your snippet tool to take the vocabulary right off of the Attainment documents. And you know those Attainment documents are accessible through the Google Drive folder that was shared with us with admin. So you could do it that way. I've chosen to do it that way. So let me go ahead and grab that vocabulary and paste it in here. All right, there's my vocabulary. And for your repeated storyline, this is obviously up to you, but as you know, a repeated storyline is something that is repeated throughout the lesson. It invokes student engagement, but also what the statement needs to do is it needs to summarize the focus of the lesson. And the best way to do that is to use your standards. Sometimes you have to hybrid standards because we know we don't just teach one standard. We know we focus on a standard, but we're using like lots of standards to drive a lesson. For this lesson, we're focusing on human needs, living thing needs, like it's a needs lesson, but it's also a health lesson. That's us using fourth grade and the third grade and fifth grade standards, to drive this lesson. So I want a repeated storyline statement that kind of blends them. So I think a good statement might be, I understand I need healthy foods to survive, or maybe I see nutritious in the vocabulary. I'm just walking you through my thought process. So maybe I need nutritious foods to survive. I like that. I think that's something that you should know when you're done with the lesson. So I'm just going to do that. I need nutritious foods to survive. Because that's really what this lesson is about. It's what you humans need to survive. And the answer is nutritious foods. And that's what you learn in this lesson. All right, so I have my vocabulary, I have my repeated storyline, I see my star, and I'm satisfied with this slide. So I'm going to go ahead and delete my class. I'm ready to go to the next one. All right, next we have a KWL chart. In this KWL chart, you just want to be mindful that like up here, it says healthy food because I changed it, but you want to make sure that you put whatever your lesson is called in here. So mine says healthy food because that's what my lesson is about, healthy food. So it says, let's make a KWL chart about healthy food. What do we already know? On this slide, you're going to see the KWL chart and the three bubbles that are covering the statements underneath. So the first thing you want to do is, like I said, change this to whatever your lesson is, but that's really all you need to do on this slide, because this one should just look like clouds. And I'll show you what it looks like all together when we're done creating it so that you can see why they look like this in this order. You'll come to the next slide, and here you're going to type what the students already know. So what I like to do for this, and again, make sure it says your lesson up here, not healthy food, or insert lesson title here. So what does the student already know? For this lesson, we're learning about needs of living things. That is what encompasses like this chunk of science for this portion of the year. And we just recently learned about what plants need to survive. So I feel like a good what do I already know would be related to needs and the needs of plants, not humans. Globalizing this knowledge. I already know this thing, and based on that, it makes me wonder, what about this thing, right? So I'm going to use that previous knowledge to fill out the what do I know. So I know that plants need soil, water, sunlight, and space. All right, so I know my plants needs. Plants need soil, water, sunlight, and space. That's true. That's something that we know. That's something that your students should know following your last lesson, right? All right, so the next slide is going to be where you type what they wonder. Now you see this one, it still has type what students already know here. So you're going to want to type this again in there. You just copy and paste it like I did. All right, and then in here, you're going to type what they wonder. So maybe your students are wondering, or maybe something that you want them to wonder is, what are some nutritious foods that people need? So what are some healthy people need? What are some healthy foods that people need? This could literally be anything. I'm just like going off the fly. You could really spend more time thinking about it. You could be more standards driven. What are some nutritious foods humans need to survive? Like using some more of that language. Totally up to you. Like when you have more time, right? So there you have the first section of your KWO chart. Let me show you what that looks like in presentation. So when you're delivering this as a presentation, the reason we do it that way is the first chart has the clouds, right? And then when you click, that first cloud is going to disappear. And then when you click again, that second cloud is going to disappear. So there's a reason that it looks the way it does, that we fill it out in that way. All right, now we're getting into our content. All right, content is extremely personal, but it should always be evidence-based, practice-driven, or research-based driven. You just want to use good content, right? Like I don't need to tell you that, you're already using good content. So for me, for science, I just use attainment. That's what we've decided as a grade band that we want to use. You might be using something different. Content is extremely personal. This is what you're teaching. So I'm going to fill out this content to fit me, this core content, so you understand my thought process. But just remember, this is my thought process. This is how I do my core content. Some of these things are going to be different for you. All right, so remember, you can change this background slide to be whatever you like to fit your presentation. For these content slides, these core ones, I like to make these fun images. I like these to be pretty, right? Because I have this black back text with this yellow font, kids can see it, good, right? That's friendly for our VI kids. I want a fun background on it. I want them to see it and go, ooh, peppers. Peppers must be a healthy food, right? Like make some inferences. Okay, so that's personal preference. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to change my background real quick. And this part's going to go a little bit quicker because you're just going to see me creating this lesson. So I want some colorful peppers. I wrote peppers. That's great. Hold on. Colorful peppers is what I need. Beautiful. Okay, I like these. So I'm going to put these colorful peppers here. And on this first slide, this is like a transition slide. It should be explicit in how it summarizes what the lesson is going to be about. So we already changed our background image. So you need this sentence. This sentence is your focus, your theme of your lesson. So I think a nice, simple, student friendly sentence would be humans Or sometimes I like to say like this week. So today we are going to talk about the need to survive. Like that kind of thing. Today we are going to talk about healthy food. I wouldn't say healthy foods. That seems right. The plural, so there's multiple foods. About healthy foods that humans need to survive. Cut and dry, really explicit. Like I said, personal preference. Make that whatever you like. Just make it. All right, so I'm going to go to the next sentence. This is where my content really starts. This is just the way I do it. I like to do a little bit of review, new information, new information, new information, and then bam, I like to put in some evidence-based, research-based content. So for that, it will look like this. Give me a second. I just created these slides really quick because you don't really need to see how I did them. You know how to do them. It's the same skills that I've already showed you, but it's just what I want my slides to look like. So for this one, I did a review slide. Living things have needs. We know that from our previous lesson. You already know what plants need to survive. So I put those things in there. Water, sun, nutrients from soil. And then I made this next slide. Humans have needs too. The human body needs nutritious food, water, rest, protection. So I talk about the basic human needs because that is one thing that we're focusing on in this lesson. So I did the review. We're talking about needs, guys. I did the new content. Like these are the human needs. These are basic human needs. And then we're going to go more into that nutritious food. So think of it as like the umbrella is shrinking. We have needs of living things. Then we have needs of plants. And now we're moving into needs of humans, but we're even more focusing and we're talking about nutritious foods. I'm trying to show them how I got here. Not just, oh, we randomly pull these things out of the sky that we want you to learn. Like these things all connect, right? Like we're doing it in an order for a reason. They should know our scope and sequence to it and understand it. So that's just my personal preference. I'm just telling you what I think. So that's how I frame these lessons. I want to start off big and I want to get smaller to explain how we got here because they don't always understand how we got here. We know how we got here, right? So that's what I'm thinking. That's my thinking. That's the part that I create. And then when we come into here, we're going to get into the evidence-based practices. So I'm going to go get my attainment stuff because if you watch this would take a really long time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to snip this chapter in attainment about healthy food, about our focus, and I'm going to put it into this presentation. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so you can see that I pasted in this content, right? And it's a lot. It's a whole chapter of attainment, just reading. Sorry, I double pasted it. Yeah, so we have all that in there. Okay, so that's our chapter in attainment. This is up to personal preference. You're going to see in the next video when I show you how to present a virtual lesson, you're going to see a lot more detail about this. You're going to see things that I do to be engaging. I put comprehension questions within the lesson. I put prediction slides. These are things that I can't include in a template. You just have to know that they're options when you're creating the lesson, and you have to create them on your own. They're things that you have to create. So I can't show you that on here because there's no template for making the lessons more engaging, right? So you see, like just as an example, I think I have in my clipboard. I might do this, read this page. Let's say I'll read this page about cereals and grains, and maybe I want to put a comprehension question after it. There is what it might look like. You have like this little thing where you can put your answer choices, type your question, that kind of thing. That will be in here. You just have to decide where to put them, right? That's up to you. That's your choice. And then maybe you ask a question about something on this page about carbohydrates or something. Or maybe you use a question from your thinking questions. Maybe there are parts of your lesson where you're asking things that are relevant to your thinking questions that you asked at the beginning of the lesson. That's how I do it, but it's totally up to you. So that content gets very personal, and just make sure that you're including all the things you need, and the rest is up to you. I don't want to spend too much of your time doing that. Even when it comes to the KWL chart, I mean, the KWL chart is not required. It's just a great engaging piece. And I put it in here because it's not as easy to make. You can take it out if you don't want it, obviously, but I wanted you to have it in there so you could have the power to delete if you don't want it, or the power just to fill it out if you feel like it's something that you want to use. All right, and then this is just the end of the KWL chart. You'll fill in those two things where you had answered before for the students, and then you just go ahead and put what you learned here, and that's going to change from lesson to lesson. Okay, so now we've come to the end of the first lesson, right? And the reason we have a title slide here, and I would not fill this out again, I would just come up here, copy this one, Control C, and I would come down here and I would replace this one with that because it should be the same slide, right? The reason I do this is because when you get into that virtual mindset, you want to always think about yourself presenting. Is there a space for my face in the slides presentation? You always want to make sure that when you go into presentation mode that you fit somewhere because you're required to be on the screen. So you need to fit in the screen. I'm just being mindful of that. And then also being mindful that you cannot make a lesson that is 45 minutes long. I mean, you could, right? It just because you can do something doesn't mean you should, right? So for me, I like to finish my lesson at that content. I like to say, okay, I did a KWO chart, I did an engaging activity, I did my comprehension classes, blah, 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 blah. I did all this stuff, right? And that's when I draw it. I say, okay, that's my first video lesson. I know that students are going to get science 2 times a week. I know that they're going to get the same content for 3 to 4 weeks in a row. That first video or this first chunk of the lesson that you just saw us create, that can stay the same every single week. And then you could alternate an activity for the second day. So maybe every Tuesday they watch the lesson that you just created. And then maybe every Thursday you do a lab or you do a worksheet together, or you read a story. Like that thing can alternate, right? But this thing stays the same. I like to cap myself out at like 25 minutes. It's a long time to watch something, right? Um, and then you're thinking about them pausing to answer questions with their parents at home. Like you're hoping that that stuff's happening, but you don't know that it is, and it can be really long. So that's why I have that slide there to show myself that that's the end of that video. You don't have to do it that way. If you want to do an extra long video, you can skip this slide, dunk this out, and you can just keep on going. For this is a senses activity. This is not a requirement. This is just, I wanted to put some examples of activities that I do within the lesson. This is really fun. What you can do is you can insert images here and then place an image on top to hide the image. And then you can play a game where you say like, let's move the apple to reveal something that you can use your sense of smell to experience with our lesson, like that kind of thing. It's up to you how you phrase it. But I might go through this slide and introduce the senses, and I can show you how to do one really quick just so you can see it's a little bit higher, like a little bit more difficult. So let me show you. Okay, so here I've inserted a plate and a strawberry. So I might say, let's move the plate to reveal something that you could use your senses to experience about healthy food. So what I'll do is I'll put this image of a strawberry underneath the sense of smell, right? And then I put the plate on top of the strawberry. All right, and if the strawberry is on top of the plate, it shouldn't be. You're going to right click on the plate and you're going to put order and you're just going to make sure you bring it to the front. It's already in the front, but if you send it back, you can see, oh, the strawberry's on top of the plate. Let me fix that. So you want to bring it to the front and then you're going to animate the plate. So come up here to the top bar, select animate, and you're going to say disappear on click. And let me show you what that looks like in presentation mode. So maybe you say, all right, we use our nose to smell. What's something that you can smell related to healthy foods? And then we push away the plate. And there's a strawberry. So what it looks like is a bunch of images that are covered with plates so that you can reveal by moving the plate as you go, the relevant things. And of course, all of them would have a picture and all of them would have plates and you would go through each one. And that's just an idea for an activity that you can do. Something that is required is the use of steps to understanding connections. So like I was saying before, what I would do is I would finish the other lesson, that would be my core lesson, and then I would have my steps to making connections. That component of my lesson would be one of my activities for the week. Um, you don't have to do it this way. You can combo the other two, but just note that the steps for understanding connection is required in your lessons. You do have to have this section, however it may look. This is how mine looks. This is just my personal preference. I found this is really easy. So I start off with the steps to understanding connection slide. And then I have this slide that shows images of the connections. So here we have listen to the lesson. How does it apply to school? How does it apply to community? How does it apply to the world? We go to our next slide. And honestly, this slide should remain the same unless you make different connections. Like maybe you do home instead of school. I used to do home, but then I started doing school because I saw everyone else was doing school. So, you know, whatever connections you make, just make sure this matches. So I have a little image of each. And let me show you what this looks like in presentation mode. So you have this slide here, you go over the steps to making connections, and then you come here and you can click on school. Just know it doesn't change. Like if you click on community, it's not going to go to community next. We know that the next one's school. So part of like the mystery, the magic of it is you have to click on what you know is coming next, right? So you click on school and oh, you're in school. And remember, you can change this background to whatever you like. If you're making a connection to home, maybe you make it a picture of a home. Maybe you make it of the thing that you're making a connection to, right? It's totally up to you. So I have this little picture of a school. And remember how we inserted what's it called? We did the different videos, right? So I would find a video that is appropriate for making a connection between healthy food and school. It doesn't have to be a video either. I mean, it can be a read aloud. I mean, it would still be a video, but it doesn't have to be just a video. It could be like a reading A to Z book. It could be a read aloud on YouTube. It could be a song. It's really up to you what you could do. You could do a how-to video. I like to always include, like one of my connections is always a story. Another connection would be a song, and then I always like to do a how-to video or something informative. But that's just my preference because I like to mix it up. You know, I don't want them to have to listen to 3 read alouds in a row, but I also don't want them to have to listen to 3 songs, because then it loses its value. It's like a song is fun. Oh, another song. Oh, another song. Like it's totally up to you, but that's just how I break it up. So you could come in here and you could insert, and hopefully you already have these videos picked out. You're not just like searching on the fly, right? But I'm searching on the fly. So a video, let's say I want a song about healthy food. So, but remember it has to connect to school because you're making connections. So maybe healthy school lunch song. Like I said, I didn't research these ahead of time. You should really do that. You should be doing this on the fly, but uh, I don't know. We got, oh, look, it's a My Plate. Okay, that's cool. My Plate is something that we use at school. That's perfect. So how to create a My Plate. So I went in looking for a song. I didn't find a song. I found a how-to video, which I was saying was something I like to use anyway. So I'll make that how-to video a little bit bigger. And I'm satisfied with that. I don't really need to do anything else on the slide. So I'm going to take away those bubbles. I'll come down here. We're making connections. Take away that bubble. Nothing needs to change there. Now I want to make my connection to the community, to Charlotte. So maybe I'll insert a video. And I was thinking, like, what about, there's a really healthy restaurant, what's it called? The Bean, Charlotte, North Carolina. Wouldn't that be cool if they could watch a video about the Bean? It's a little vegan restaurant. Oh, there it is, vegan cuisine in North Carolina. And it looks like it's at the Bean. It features the Bean. And that's just a restaurant that we have in Charlotte. So that might be a cool connection they can make to our community. Like, this doesn't have to end with this video. Like, this is a conversation, you know, like you can talk about it with them. You know how to do this. All right, and then I got to make one to the world. My world slide. Maybe I can find a cool world food song. Let's see. World food song. Let's see what I can find. Maybe this is good. Oh, I've seen this one. We'll do food trip around the world. Are you hungry? That one's pretty good. All right. So let me show you what that looks like when you go into play mode or presentation mode. You got this section, which was required, school. Then when you click it, it goes back to that page. All right, now we're going to make a connection to our community. Make that connection to your community. All right, now we're going to make a connection to our world. Make that connection to your world. And then there's your title page again. So that kind of gives you a finish, like, okay, I'm done. So that's that. And then here I have for you some examples of activities you can do. So like I said, you want that core, let's say you're doing science. Half of it's going to be like Tuesday, you're going to have, this is in theory, you're going to have that core lesson, right? This thing that you recorded, maybe it includes your making connections, maybe it doesn't, whatever you decide. You have that one that repeats and repeats and repeats, but then you have something that doesn't repeat. You have an activity too. So it takes away the monotony. This is where that activity can come into place. You do need to record yourself doing these. These are technically your lessons. So maybe you record yourself just doing the KWL chart how you would in the classroom. Let me show you this on Google Docs. Of course, if they can print this out at home, awesome. And then they can do it at home. They can do it with their parents. That's fabulous. You can give them access to this. This is a blank copy so that you can fill it out to fit your lesson. But down here, you would like type what you want them to know, and then you put an image for support, right? And if you're doing this with them, what I'd recommend like is bringing up this screen, making it smaller so that, and this is just what I would do. This doesn't have to be, and then I would just go through and fill out this information with them, find those images with them. You can actually do an image search on here. It doesn't have to be a PEC. It doesn't have to be perfect. Maybe you say, you know what do they already know? Well, we can say, remember we talked about plants and their needs. That's something we already know. So plants need water, sunlight, soil, and space. All right, that's something we know about plants. And then you could have these PECs pre-made, or maybe you just come over here to images, insert an image, search the web, and you put in plant needs. See what happens. Do this with them. This is what I would do in the classroom with them. So, you know, maybe search for this stuff. Maybe you find a picture that you feel, maybe watering plants. I mean, narrate this as you're doing it, but all right, so we have a picture of, ooh, somebody watering some plants. We know plants need water. We're going to insert that. And there you go. You have an image in there, and you can put more images. It's up to you. You're working through this KWL chart with them. You know, like this is an activity. Think of it, you're doing your best to have a virtual mindset, but like what would you be doing in the classroom? So fill that stuff out with them. And you know, if you can, let's see, hold on. If you can do it, you know, you could try and have a KWL chart printed at home if you want to like show yourself cutting stuff out. And that's really up to you. You could have this already filled out if you like. Like, I mean, you got to use your creativity and your innovation to make this work virtually. It's going to be weird, right? So that's the KWO chart. Do with that what you think you can. I have the census activity here. If you click on this, it has a blank census activity that you can use and fill out as you like. This is, again, if you have like a kid with a printer, woo, you know, you can, oops, I clicked on the wrong thing. You can, you know, have them print out your copy and then cut the little pieces out and put them where they need to go. Or you can do the activity with them and you can put the things where they need to go. Like, do you remember what we could smell in our activity? You know, I don't know. Maybe have these things with you. Maybe some strawberries, some peppers, a carrot, and, you know, show them, have some props, make it fun. It's up to you. This is an example of a lab. We just picked an activity that went well with healthy and healthy foods. The lab itself, I like to make it really simple and self-explanatory, but with not too many directions so that, you know, the teacher can decide what they're going to actually do with it. So I just put a generic picture, do something with this. This is kind of a common experiments. So you take a paper towel, you put some potato chips on top, another paper towel, you put some celery or carrots or something like that, and you decide like which one's greasier, which one's more fatty, right? Let's make a visual of which one's more fatty. And then after you do the experiment, you can do these two questions. What is an example of a fatty, greasy food? And you should be able to answer chips. You answer that with them. What is an example of a healthy snack, or what's a healthy snack that you can eat instead of food? And if you use celery sticks, that's awesome. It makes it easier to answer this question. But celery sticks, they should know it's not candy and nice shoes, right? You have the distractor of candy there, but like they know food isn't shoes. So this is something that they should be able to answer, right? Especially after doing this lab. This can completely change. This is just an example. And it's so easy to make these tiny little experiments that they can A, do at home, and B, you can do at home and record yourself doing it. Like make sure the stuff is accessible to you. Also, it's kind of cool. A lot of these labs have been done online before. I actually have a video here where they could, in theory, they could watch this video too. This is a lady doing a similar experiment at home, and they could answer those questions. All right, and then at the end of all the lessons, I actually have my pre and post test questions here. Um, I have them set up. This is how I would do it with my kids. So I would give the question live, and if they got the answer wrong, I would hide it. So I would give the question, if they said candy or if they selected candy in some way, they no, not candy, and I make that answer disappear by putting it behind the black screen. This is just there because eventually, someday we are going to go back and we're going to need pre and post test questions for our lesson. So I make all these awesome lessons that are beautiful that we can use in the classroom without also putting my pre and post test questions there, right? I mean, might as well do it now. So that is how you can use this virtual template to create your own lesson. I mean, you're only limited by the amount of time you want to spend on this and your creativity, but this is a great way to say, okay, this is what I need. This is the basic. Here's the bare minimum. This will help me get through and create what I need in a lesson, and then I can add to it and make it my own and make it special. All right, I hope that was helpful. Please reach out to me if you need any help. See the next video, which is actually going to be me giving you tips for delivery of virtual instruction. So how to create an effective and engaging virtual lesson, not just create the visual of the lesson, but actually perform the lesson itself. You can also see our presentation about parts of a lesson to understand the different parts of the lesson, like the repeated storyline, the anticipatory set, that sort of thing, and understand what they are, why they're there, and see individual examples of each of those. Please look out for those resources to further help you in this process, and feel free to reach out to me. Good luck.